Eagle Broadcasting Corporation. Ito ang Radyo Agila. DCEC 1062 sa Mega Manila, AWIN 1080 sa Northern Luzon, DZEL 1260 sa Southern Taga, DYFX 1305 sa Visayas, at DXED 1224 sa Southern Mindanao. Ito ang Radyo Agila. Mabilis, malakas, pumapagaspas. Mga bagong kaalaman sa siyensya at teknolohiya. Alamin sa programang Pinoy Scientist. Tuwing linggo, alas 5 ng hapon hanggang alas 6 ng gabi. Pinoy Scientist. KBP Best Science and Technology Radio Program. Pinoy Scientist. Dito sa Radyo Agila.
Salamat po, magandang hapon sa lahat ng mga tagapakinig ng Radyo Agila. Ako po ang inyong friendly neighborhood Pinoy Scientist, Dr. Custer. At kayo po ay nakikinig sa ikalabing-dalawa at huling kabanata po ng Pinoy Scientist Art Science Radio. Dito po sa Art Science Radio ay napakinggan niyo po ang mga kakaibang istorya ng agham, teknolohiya, inobasyon, kultura at sining. At sinusuportan din po ng Pinoy Scientist ang pagsulong ng STEAM education o ang Science, Technology, Engineering, Arts, and Mathematics. So nais ko po ipakilala ang ating co-host for the past year, the past 12 months, si Dr. Corinne Romabilis. Isa po siyang art science expert ng Asian Institute of Management. Hello, Corinne.
Hello, Custer. I am very happy that we've completed an entire year, and I must say
Yes.
it's been an experience. Thank you very much for really mentoring me in this endeavor. I'm so happy.
And of course, Dr. Corinne, through you, we were able to showcase how arts, culture, and all forms of arts actually can be merged into innovation, science, and technology to bring in something different. And a lot of our listeners and viewers were very fascinated with the previous episodes that we had. Syempre, at the end, maybe we can discuss a little bit of ano ba ang hinaharap or what's the future for art science, because this is not gonna be the end of our advocacy, but it's just the beginning.
Yeah.
So I can see now, Jacob, how to pronounce it?
Mens, yes, Mens.
Mentz, okay. And siya po ang guest ni Dr. Corinne. So, Dr. Corinne, can you just give us a brief message or a brief introduction of what's gonna happen today?
Okay. Sige. So this is our so-called Christmas special, no? Custer here is into the hard sciences. You know that, friends. He is a well-renowned scientist in the Philippines, and I am an art instructor. I'm into the humanities. So in this final episode, we have invited this very special guest who has been in my design thinking event, and he is Jacob is part of the Blue Earth Alliance, and he has a project Katutubong Pilipino. So his works had appeared in very famous like media channels that we know.
Mm-hmm.
There are too many to mention, no. And he has a website. You can go check his website, and it's currently being shown here right now. Jacob has worked for the BBC, National Geographic,
Wow.
yeah, and all of these famous groups, no? So Jacob also, apart from having a degree in biology, so just like you, is a hard scientist, okay? But he is also a documentary photographer who explores the interplay of the natural world, culture, and identity. So he is this epitome of a balance, no, of the art scientist that we're looking for. And what a wonderful way to conclude no, our year. No? So, Dr. Custer, I'd also like you to meet Jacob, who from here on I think will be part of our art science movement. No?
All right. And ang episode po natin ngayon, well, we're gonna, shift from Filipino to English
Yeah.
because ang ating mga tagapakinig ay karamihan ay nasa Pilipinas at ito yung mga estudyante and one of the best way to relay and inspire people of course sa ating pambansang wika. Okay, sa episode na po na ito ng ating Pinoy Scientist Art Science Radio ay pinamagatang nating Building and Sustaining the Art Science Culture in the Philippines at ating bibigyang daan or ipapakita ang iba't ibang aspeto ng art science. And this time, it's in the it's in photography. I mean, photography is also an art. Is that correct, Dr. Corinne?
Of course. So I think if Jacob later on can tell us, no, it photography was actually used as a tool in the sciences in the beginning. It's a documentation. It's used to record
Mm-mm.
events, no, and things. But in the like mid 1900s, it has become an art with a proponent called Alfred Stieglitz. Is that correct, Jacob? So Jacob will tell us more about about this melding of art and science in photography. The
And
evolution of photography is also like that. Yes,
Dr.
Caster.
Corinne, it's art and photography being one and the same also. Syempre, it's like a political statement. It moves you to understand the world around you so that you can direct your emotion, your energy into something that's going to be productive and can help the world
Of course.
and bring you to a higher level of consciousness so that you'll be a better person.
Hmm.
And that's probably you can see, nakikita natin dito ang mga fotografiya o mga pictures na kinuha ni Jacob and really it speaks a lot. It speaks a lot about our country, the culture, the beauty and the diversity of the Filipino na hindi, alam mo, it's so sad, na kadalasan hindi rin nakikita ng ating kapwa Pilipino, Dr. Corinne.
Yes,
And
yes,
and I feel, no, it takes the lens and eyes of somebody who is not naturally born in our country to really appreciate how is it how to be a Filipino, how to have a beautiful culture. So mapapakinggan natin 'yan at marirealize natin yung mga usapin na 'yan sa pagbabalik lang po ng Pinoy Scientist. Ang oras po natin ngayon ay 7 minuto makalipas sa ikalima ng hapon Philippine Standard Time. Magbabalik po ang Pinoy Scientist at wag po kayong aalis.
EBC, Eagle Broadcasting Corporation. Ito ang Radyo Agila.
EO Executive Optical. For expert eye care, come to EO Executive Optical. With over 300 stores nationwide. EO Executive Optical. Love your eyes.
Ito ang dapat mong malaman. Ayon sa Global Adult Tobacco Survey, noong 2015, nasa 13.1 million adults, 33.9% ay kalalakihan at 3.6% mga kababaihan ang naninigarilyo sa Pilipinas. Araw-araw, nasa 4% lamang ang naging matagumpay na nakapag-quit habang nasa 76.7% naman ang nagplano o nag-isip na huminto sa paninigarilyo. Pero bakit nga ba tayo dapat umiwas sa paninigarilyo? Ayon sa World Health Organization o WHO, sigarilyo ang nangungunang sanhi ng kamatayan, disabilities at iba pang sakit. Sa buong mundo, nasa 8 milyong katao ang namamatay taon-taon dahil sa paninigarilyo, habang 1.2 milyon naman ay mga non-smoker na nalantad sa second-hand smoke. Sa pinakahuling report ng WHO, nasa 1.1 billion ang bilang ng mga naninigarilyo sa buong mundo at karamihan dito ay nasa low and middle income countries. Ito ang dapat mong malaman.
Mga bagong kaalaman sa siyensya at teknolohiya. Alamin sa programang Pinoy Scientist. Tuwing linggo, alas 5 ng hapon hanggang alas 6 ng gabi. Pinoy Scientist. KBP Best Science and Technology Radio Program. Pinoy Scientist. Dito sa Radyo Agila.
Nagbabalik sa Pinoy Scientist, Art Science Radio. Dito lang po sa Radyo Agila at ako po si Dr. Custer, ang inyong friendly neighborhood Pinoy Scientist at sa mga kachuchudiin pa lang dyan. Ang Pinoy Scientist po ay nagsasahimpapawid tuwing ikatlong linggo ng buwan ng paksang Art Science o Agham Arte. At itong makabagong katagang Art Science o Agham Arte ay ang tambalan po ng agham, teknolohiya, inobasyon, kultura at sining. At sa araw na ito ay hinahandog natin ang ika-12 o ang huling episode natin na pinamagatang Building and Sustaining the Art Science Culture in the Philippines, kasama pong isang renowned international photographer na si Jacob Mentz. So, Dr. Corinne.
Yeah. So, welcome again, everyone. Sana tayo ay medyo mas mag-tune in po today, no? Dahil we are going to be speaking more in English for our guests
Oh,
to
yes.
understand us better, no? So, kung gusto nyo, mag-Google Translate kayo paminsan-minsan. Sa tingin ko naman, the Filipinos have excellent English comprehension, no? Jacob, welcome again. Thank you for being in our, the special episode that we have for the last day of the year. And so I'll give you now the questions that we've prepared, no? And so we are going to be focusing on you and your work, no, from here on, no? So one of the things we'd like to know is about your background, no? Your prolific background, because you have a degree in biology, and you have your work as a documentary photographer, no? So what might art science mean to you?
Well,
The
first,
term art science.
sure.
Mhm.
I'd like to first just thank you, Dr. Rin and Dr. Custer as well for having me here. It's a great honor to be with you all and to share some of the things that I've learned throughout the course of my work as a photographer and conservation biologist, and sort of merging these things together. So yeah, I think I'll start by saying that there's a couple of things that the art science really means to me. What stands out to me when I was reflecting on that. The first is from a photography standpoint. I feel like it's a great way to bridge this divide, right? Because the hard sciences, can be very hard to understand for a general audience. And so photography being a visual medium, it's a way that you can connect with people on a emotional level. And so what I really try to do with my work is to do just that. It's to grab the attention of people and bring them into a photograph, into a story, and then use that to build up whatever it is you're trying to tell the audience, whether it's about indigenous peoples or it's about conservation or about culture or about sustainability. All of these things that come about through the sciences, but we need to be able to connect to people at a different level. And so I think photography really does that. You know, there was a study that came out a number of years ago in the US, and the study showed that the average American child can recognize up to 1,000 corporate logos by the time they're 10 years old. But those same children can't identify 10 native plant and animal species native to their hometowns. And so our children's attention, actually all of our attentions, have really been stolen from what's most important, right? You know, we scroll on our phones, our attention spans have come down to this. And so what I really try to do with my photography is to try to, you know, steal back some of that attention through visual medium, um, and then give the important context that needs to be given. Um, and so that's the first thing I think that stands out to me. The second thing is I think this art science uh, merging really gives a more holistic way of approaching our knowledge systems, right? And so I've done a lot of work with indigenous communities throughout the past 10 years of my work here in the Philippines. And the way that they look at science, at their knowledge systems, Western science is a great thing, but it's very nuanced. It's very direct, and it's very intellectual, right? Um, and so the indigenous knowledge systems they sort of embody these four concepts: the mind, the body, the emotion, and the spirit. Whereas Western science really only looks at one of those, which is the mind, and sometimes the physical as well. So um, bringing in the arts, bringing in these different perspectives and ways of looking at the world really gives a more holistic view of knowledge systems and different ways of how we can approach and solve problems, right? Um, Western science is wonderful and it has its place in all of this, but I think we really need to expand our perspectives. And so I think art has a way of doing that, photography has a way of doing that, and then learning from these different communities that really embrace these different perspectives and aspects of their being.
Okay. Um, Jacob, you mentioned about Western science being hard, and you know the way you bring out in your photography. I mean, looking at your pictures here, I'm having goosebumps, and I'm a Filipino. I've never seen this in my country, and it gives you a different level of consciousness about my identity as a Filipino. Now, I'd like to ask, those pictures the emotions that you're trying to convey. How do you think that will change the way we do science and the way we innovate?
Well, we're an emotional species, right? And so we're a social species, we're an emotional species. And so I think by connecting at an emotional level, people feel like that they're more part of something. So when you connect at this level, people are more engaged. They tend to remember things for a lot longer when they have this emotional response to things. Um, and so a photo cannot always tell, they call photography the art of exclusion, because what you leave out is just as important as what you put in the frame. And so there are inherent biases that are in photography. And so I for one frame of one photo can never tell a whole story, right? But
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it needs to. I think it's there to, again, to grab the attention, to create some kind of emotional response, and then people are more open to wanting to learn more, and they can sort of dive and dig deeper into whatever it is that you're trying to show. And I think that's the real power that lies with the arts, because it opens people up in a different way than, you know reading an article, a scientific paper. It just it really hits the core of who we are as humans, as an emotional species, right? We can tap into that, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, so I have a follow-up question. No? Since the Philippines has really become like a major focus of your art science work among the IPs, you're looking into culture, identity, the environment, conservation, all at once. Um, can you will you be able to say that there really is some kind of an art science experience that people can have in the Philippines, and that's kind of really going to be new to us, no, Jacob?
Mm.
And then a follow-up question is, so in your global experience, can you perhaps cite for us some 2 to 3 singular qualities or features of the Philippines that would make it an art science place?
Love that question, Dr. Kareen.
Yeah.
Right here, you trained me, Caster.
So, Dr. Kuhn, what the first question is, you want me to sort of talk about, um, sorry, can you repeat the
Yeah, okay. So earlier you were telling us about this journey that you've had in the Philippines, and that you're saying that, like, as a conservation photographer, you're a biologist, you've seen that IPs have this kind of environment wherein you're able precisely to explore this art science notion, no? And I think you're just confirming what we're saying here, no? So my question is, what do you think are the two or three singular qualities or features of the Philippines that would make it an art science place that has captivated your attention?
Yeah, I mean, I think the most of the work that I've done has been with indigenous communities, and I think again, like I was saying before, they really incorporate these four aspects of being: the mind, the body, the spirit, and the emotional. And so I think that really that brings in the arts, right? And actually, in a lot of languages, a lot of indigenous languages, there's no words. There's actually no word for art or for nature because it's actually just a part of who they are as a people. So there would be no need to have a word to describe what is separate from them, right? Because it's a part of them. And so in Western science and in the Western worldview, typically we separate humans from nature. And so we have this sort of hierarchical system where humans are on top. We think of nature as a resource that can be exploited. We think of this separation between us and everything else, between the animals, the plants, the land. Whereas the indigenous worldview typically is more holistic, inclusive, where humans are sort of in this circle, this circular, holistic way of looking at things, where humans are just one piece of this interconnectedness, and that the animal beings and the plant beings are just as important as the human beings. And so I think this is one reason why a lot of indigenous communities don't have a word for nature, because they see themselves as being just an extension of this, right? As one part of it. And so it's the same for art. Art is just an expression of of what it is to be alive and to live and to be. And so again, why would these communities need a term to describe that when it's actually just a part of being? And so yeah, I think if you look at indigenous communities in the Philippines, I think this is just a natural part of how most communities are, right? They incorporate all of these things. So they incorporate the arts. They have their own knowledge systems, their own science systems, which is based on observations over centuries and centuries and centuries, which we might not call science, but it is science because it's something that's been observed for so long, right? And if you talk to a lot of there's tons of stories that I could go into, but I'll tell one that I think is a great example. When
Yeah,
the
go ahead.
when the Tagbanwa in Coron were delineating their land and the sea around Coron Island, because it was going to be declared ancestral land and ancestral water under the new 1998 the IPRA law that was going to grant indigenous peoples certified ancestral domain to their lands. And so my friend who we interviewed, Dave De Vera, he's a consultant, and so he was helping the Tagbanwa to come up with what are the delineations going to be for the land and the water. So this was in the late 90s. GPS was sort of at its infancy. It was good, but it wasn't great. So Dave was on the boats with some of the Tagbanwa, and they're going around Coron Island trying to figure out where these GPS points are going to be. And all of a sudden, there was a big tuna run in the distance. And Dave told me that Tagbanwa said, we have to go catch the tuna. And Dave's like, no, we can't. I finally got a GPS signal. It's been in and out. We can't leave now, or when we come back, we're going to have this huge gap in our data set. And they're like, no, don't worry. So they go and they catch their tuna on the tuna run. That they come back a few hours later, and they're like, Dave, you can now turn on your GPS again. And so he turned on his GPS again, and they were literally within 3 feet of where they had left, in the middle of the ocean.
Wow.
And so it just goes to show you that these communities have a different kind of awareness based on all of these other aspects of being, right? They can figure out where things are. They know the ocean, and it was at that point that Dave realized that there is such thing as ancestral waters, because the Tagbanwa know intimately the boundaries of their oceans, of their seas. And so that's just one example of just a different way of approaching, of looking at things. Um, that's also scientific in a lot of ways, right? And so I think these things are embedded into communities, but we don't hear about it. We don't know much about it, um, because those stories are not really put out into the world. And so yeah, I think communities here, people here have these different ways of looking at things, and so I think for me that's sort of this art science to get coming together, right? It's bringing these knowledge systems that these communities have used for thousands of years, and and also merging that. So without Dave being there, without bringing in the Western science, they couldn't have got their land declared as Caddy, right, as ancestral domain, because who is the audience that they have to, who are making these decisions, right? It's the scientific community, it's the government, and they need sort of this hard science, right? And so these things are important. You have to talk in the language of your audience again, and so the communities start to realize this, right? That they know they have all these knowledge systems and ways of doing things, but they understand that it's important to merge that with Western science as well, for not only policy but for actually improving and doing and improving sustainability as well. So
Yeah.
I guess I sort of went off a bit from your point,
No,
but
perfect. Yeah, that was good. That was very good. Caster, can I have a follow up to
Oh,
that? No?
okay. Go
Because
ahead, Dr. Kareem.
yeah, so kasi we have time, and I was also just looking at this from my perspective, no, in Filipino anthropology. No? So we're looking at, okay, this art science. It seems that no, art science is going to be common among indigenous peoples, in a variety of places. I think also in the Amazons, you have that among many of these Latin American indigenous peoples, and even in the United States. No, my question is, and I think you've also met some of them, took photographs of them, did a lot of also interactions with them. Might you be able to say that Filipino indigenous peoples have their own values system? Because I'm looking at this study on the Filipino value system, and Felipe Landa Hocano, who is my main source, would say that there is this indigenous culture and identity that can be very manifest, or can be so tangible in our values system, no, as Filipinos. Might you have been able to, see this in your interactions among different IPs all over the world?
yeah, there's certainly different value systems within communities, within regions, and then sort of more broadly defined value systems with indigenous peoples versus sort of uh, like the majority of the world, we live in a Western system, right? We've adopted a Western system. So when I talk about sort of the indigenous value systems versus the Western value systems, it's just because these are generalizations, but I think generally speaking, there are certainly nuanced value systems within the Philippines, within communities, but generally speaking, um, indigenous value systems are based on uh, communal caring versus sort of individualistic, right? This is one concept. So you do that. If you want to create wealth or value, it's generally for the community and not at an individual level. So this is one of the value systems that, generally speaking, indigenous communities have. Um, Another value system is, again, it's not putting humans on top. It's thinking about the the bird species having just as much value as the plants and has the humans, right? We're just one part of this interconnectedness, this interdependency of species. And so they value the land in a different way. They look at the land in a different way versus sort of a Western, uh, again, viewpoint of land where we're separate from it. Um, there are lots of different, trying to think of what are some other general value systems that indigenous communities have. Um, there are, I'm trying, in the Cordillera, there's some specific ones. So I don't remember the terms offhand, but they have different terms for like recycling things, and making sure that there is no waste within a community. It's common in Sagada and in the Cordillera Baguio area. I don't recall the term per se. So there's different words in the different languages, and they have these value systems are incorporated into the languages, into their culture as well. Um, but yes, generally speaking, indigenous value systems are more holistic in approach, inclusive, whereas Western tend to be more individualistic, sort of more technical, um, and so those are some of the biggest differences, I would say.
I'm browsing at your collection of photos, and like I felt like, oh, I'm so excited going to France. I'm so excited. Next year I'm going to Brazil. I'm so excited. And when I looked at your photos, I felt I missed a lot in my own country. And I'm so happy that I wish I felt, well, in a way, I felt sorry about myself. How come I went to this area only looking at the buildings, not peering into the lives of people, looking at the way you looked at the environment. So that's the way art and photography work. So that's fantastic. In this picture, I've been looking at it, and
Mm,
you see, we have problems with overfishing, and there's this photograph tells you how you should be empathizing not just on the amount of fish being used or consumed by the Filipinos, by the lack of the loss of the biodiversity of our fish, but also in the lives of our fishermen. And by simply looking at this picture, I feel uh, when you create policies, you have to be empathic at all levels.
absolutely. And um, I think that's another beautiful thing about a photograph is that it can also be interpreted in a number of ways. And so that leaves room for the viewer to really put themselves into the
Yes.
situation and have sort of uh, build up some more of that empathy, right? So I think that's the beautiful thing about the visual medium is that it has room for interpretation. Um, so even without the caption, right? There's a way that everyone would
Y-
interpret it a little
Actually,
bit
you don't need
differently,
the caption. You just
right?
you just need to look at this guy looking far, and you would see his body, the way how hard he works, and you look at the fish, you would instantly feel that there's something wrong in our system. But
Right.
how to solve it, you have to empathize and think about all the other things that matters,
Absolutely.
lives of these people and the entire country, and even the ocean. So that's beautiful. It's a beauty of art.
Thank you. Yeah, it's that's the idea as again creating that emotional connection to people and letting people really explore, and want to learn more. So
Custer, anything else?
Oh, Dr. Green, you
Yeah,
can go
okay.
ahead.
Yeah, so I'd like to, here's another bomb. Let's see, Jacob, okay? Because like this is our this is our last segment. It's our last
Mm-mm.
show for the
I
year.
never answered your last question though, like about what Filipinos, what are two singular qualities. I don't know if I
Okay,
ever
yeah,
even.
okay, go ahead, go ahead.
I'll just quickly touch. I think Filipinos are very creative people, at the core. I've lived here for a long time, and um, not only in the art world, but in making things and doing things. Like Filipinos are very creative people, and I don't know where that necessarily stems from. And so again, and I also feel like Filipinos are at a higher emotional intelligence than a lot of other cultures. And so I don't know. I think those are the two that really stand out to me. Um, yeah, that stands.
Wonderful.
Yeah,
Love those.
So
I love those. Yeah.
creativity that can be translated to technology and innovation,
Oh, yeah.
and there's a sense of emotional quotient, high emotional quotient. That's art. You meld the two. You create things like innovation. For example, the iPhone, which is a product of liberal arts, emotion, and technology.
right.
So really, I think Jacob and Dr. Corinne, if we could only tap into that power of art science in the country, maybe we can really bring in something new that
Yeah.
can improve the economy and the lives of everybody else.
Correct. Correct. And yeah, so my next question is actually going towards that position. No? So Jacob, here's this other question. So our radio program, Custer and I, we advocate for art science as
Mm.
key in development. That is a way to solve poverty, a goal in your own work among marginalized IPs. How do you think can Filipinos improve and grow as art scientists, thus be more active in Philippine development? Any suggestions for Philippine education, nurturing young Filipino minds in art science?
Yeah, I really think this comes down to education. This is really important to me. And I want to give a story. So I was recently listening to a systems thinker, Peter Senge. And I think I mentioned this in the talk that we had at Asia Pacific.
UANP.
Yeah, yes, exactly. But anyway, Peter's son is a friend we had met recently, and so I started listening to a bunch of. He's sort of one of these great system thinkers, and so I was listening to one of his YouTube videos not too long ago, and he was sharing about how a friend of his, an algebra teacher, uh, used to create these wonderful, amazing algebra lectures for his students. And so he was so proud of how well he put these lectures together, and eventually the students stopped doing well on the tests. Like he gave these great lectures, and like the problems on the test, he's like, how could they get this wrong? I showed them how to do this, but they were still not doing well on the tests. And so after about 5 years of teaching algebra, he decided I need to do something different because this isn't working. And so he decided to completely revamp his way of teaching. So now the students actually teach the students, and he doesn't talk for more than about 5 minutes in his class. And if he does, it's mostly just to give some insight or to give some guidance to the students themselves. And so the students teach themselves algebra. And since that time, all of the scores have gone up. And so it's a different way of teaching. It's a different way of education where it's not focused necessarily on the individual, but it's focused on the whole community being uplifted and learning these concepts. And some students will grasp the concepts better than others, and those students will help teach the other students. And this is really formative in the indigenous educational system, because this is exactly what they do in the indigenous schools. They learn from a communal aspect. So they learn about how to uplift the community. They learn what is best for the community, and they learn technical skills that are practical to their location and to their actual community. So like it could be farming or fishing methods, things that they're going to actually use for the benefit of the people that live there. And so I see this all the time, like especially with my kids now. They're in high school, right? There's so much emphasis on, honors and individual. Like, did they reach this honors or this level? And there's merit to be had in that. But I always constantly think, like, if we were to change the way that we do things and really try to uplift and collaborate and teach students that the world works in a collaborative way, right? And we should really be trying to uplift communities and not individuals. I think this approach to education might actually be Um, Maybe not for all disciplines, but I think in general education, I think this has a lot of power to it, right? And you can see from the indigenous schools that practice this type of education, um, that the students do benefit. They learn in their native tongues. They learn about their culture in these schools, and they learn about working together. And I think we need more of that. Um, it's learning about humanities and the arts, and it's
Mm.
also learning about the scientific, the maths and the sciences and all of this. But it's also incorporating all of these other things as well into the system. So.
So
I you
collaboration is really
Collaboration, yeah, teaching kids how to collaborate at a, you know, and more than just doing group projects, or that's part of it, but it's really, trying to learn that we need to uplift everybody. And there's always like this competitive things in most Western schools, right? Like everyone's competing against each other. And I think we need to work more together and to learn how to figure out what the strengths are of each individual and how they can use those strengths to uplift everyone in the community. And I think we've gotten away from that in a lot of our educational systems.
a few minutes ago, I was before the show. I'm writing my slide. I'm prepared for my talk tomorrow on globalized education. And apparently, I just have this realization when you talked about looking into the indigenous communities and how they behave. It's exactly the same thing as what we need to teach about having global perspective,
Yeah,
empathy, interdependency, sustainability. So I have this realization that the indigenous people have a more globalized perspective than the Western education. And I think that's something that we need to connect and learn from in the indigenous community. They are in fact the epitome of a globalized citizen.
absolutely. And we always, many
Amazing,
people look at
amazing.
indigenous people as primitive, of not
Yes,
not being advanced, but that can be so far from the truth because their systems are so nuanced and um, they're so advanced, really. But we just don't think of uh, communities like this for the different biases that we've been taught throughout our lives, right? Like we've been taught that indigenous people are stuck in the past when that's not true. Like the communities are alive, their languages are alive, their cultures are alive, their values, their knowledge systems, all of these things are flourishing and they're alive. And we do need to, I believe do need to start incorporating those into how we do things on a global level. Because look at what's happened to us now. I mean, global warming. We're still fighting wars. We have global health issues. All of these things, and this is all from sort of this Western perspective that and it's not working, right? It's not really
yes,
working because we have these
precisely.
major world problems that are not solved. So I think it's important to learn from those who have been through these challenges in their history, that have learned, that have adopted, and it's just sort of changing our perspective and it's starting to happen. Like there's at these big climate summits in Dubai recently, there are indigenous voices, but they're on the sideline. They're not at the main tables talking, and so little by little. But we need more. I think we need more of a shift in how from education to policy to systems thinking to all of these things. I think
a friend of mine was just telling me about a journal that he came across, and the title was The Original Affluent Society. The Original Affluent Society. And the study really talks about indigenous, the indigenous peoples, that they have everything
Yes,
that they need. They don't, yeah, theirs is of a different type of wealth. And so that was the title of the journal. You guys might like to check it out. I forgot who the author was, but it's there. It's downloadable. The original affluent societies are precisely these so-called primitive people.
well, if you look at a Native American culture, for example, um, they had this idea that they couldn't leave a scar on the land, And so they had these flourishing societies of millions of people before Western Europeans came over and colonized the United States. But there's no real records of this in the land because they never built these great pyramids. They never built these huge, vast temples and all of these things because their 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 way of looking at things was not to leave any scars on the land. And so they have these amazing societies, but yes, there might not be records of that in history per se, because of the way that they wanted to leave the land, right? So yeah, it's a really different way of looking at the world, um, of looking at our relationship with the land, which is so important, I think, because a lot of us have lost that connection to place, to land, to where we're from. Um, so
Uh,
Wonderful.
we only have 13 minutes left, so I'd like to ask this question that's bothering me. Why did you make Philippines your home?
mm.
What's what is it in the Philippines that you fell in love with and made you stay?
Well, I came here originally back in 2003 as a Peace Corps volunteer.
Hmm.
And so I volunteered in Palawan for a couple of years. I knew nothing about the Philippines before I arrived. I was a fresh graduate and I was looking for something to do. And this opportunity came up where I could be a volunteer for a couple of years. And so I was flown off here, and yeah, I had a wonderful 2 years of volunteer doing environmental education, collecting marine data in northern Palawan. So yeah, I had a wonderful time, and then I met my wife actually during that time, and so that's
Hmm?
what
A
eventually
Filipina.
Filipina.
Yes.
Yeah.
You
Oh,
literally
okay.
fell in love with the Philippines and the Filipina. It's
Yes.
amazing.
So yeah, we've been based here in Cebu since 2006. It's his home, and yeah, the photography work. My background's in conservation biology, but photography was never sort of separate from that. So I think it was an evolving thing together, and it was a way for me to really want to show this beauty that I fell in love with the natural world. Photography was a way to sort of to to bring that love out to others as well. So the passion for photography sort of co-evolved with with this love of nature and um, the natural world. So and there are some amazing places here in the Philippines. Not only communities but parks and natural spaces. Just some amazing places.
So thank you very much, Jacob. And I would like to assume also that being a conservation biologist, your talent for photography blossomed in a way that you're able to capture the beauty of nature. And then when you came to the Philippines, you were able to understand the nuances of the culture and the beauty of the culture that most Filipinos haven't even seen. And here you are sharing it to everybody. And I'm very thankful. I've seen a lot of your photos and felt very good about my country again.
Oh, that's great
Okay.
to hear.
Thank
Yeah.
you very much, Jacob.
Thank you so much, Custer.
Okay. So in the last five minutes, Dr. Corrine, tell me about your plans because this is gonna be the end of our. This is the last episode. So what are the plans for next year? And
Wow.
how are we gonna continue this art science advocacy that has
Yes.
somehow gained traction over the
Yeah.
months?
Yeah. I was just telling Jacob, we have more ads right now, Caster. So since we are paving the way for the next year with this wonderful discussion that we have raised by Jacob's presence also, no. Perhaps this is already an introduction to Filipino art science going global. What do you think, no? And we're looking into maybe
Because
having,
Jacob said there's something special in us, which
yeah,
which enamored him, and maybe we can tap on those special features of being a Filipino
yeah,
and make the Philippines stand out again in
yeah,
the global scene
definitely.
through art science, right?
Uh-huh. we would like to explore that in the coming year, and perhaps even have a more formal gathering. Like it doesn't have to be so big, but like a seminar perhaps, where we invite some, like art scientists. No? If there really is such a thing, an art scientist, but we definitely can have, like discussions and more knowledge about this, new concept, very exciting upcoming idea for professionals, no, doing cross-disciplinary thinking. So
And
basically,
Jacob said we have a very high emotional quotient, and we're very creative. So we really need not just to sell art science abroad, selling the Philippines abroad through art science, but we need to really sell it to tap into the collective talent of Filipinos. Because who knows, uh, we can inspire the next generation art scientists, innovators that will change the country or even the world.
mm, yeah. Well,
So
we hope.
Dr. Corinne will be establishing a conference for art
Ah,
science, right? What
yes.
else are we gonna do? What's your plan? Or
Uh,
Jacob, maybe you can pitch in some ideas.
Yes, yes, yes. Well, we are going to have in April our art science course running again. So last year it was
At
Philippine branding.
AIM? Is it at
Yes,
AIM?
at AIM. So
Oh,
last year, Custer was in my course called Filipino Branding, but it seems that at the AIM they're going to make this art science course like some kind of obligatory
oh, wow.
required elective. Can you imagine what
Wait a minute. Did we influence AIM? Did this program influence AIM?
I
Because
don't
I saw some AIM professors and officials liking our show. In
really?
on
Wow,
Facebook. Yes, Chris
fantastic.
Montarola, he liked it. He
Yeah,
sent hello and
wonderful.
congratulations.
Yeah, buti na lang. Oh, we also have Jacob here, no? So, yeah, so we're thinking about maybe coming up with like group discussions, seminars, no, so that we can spread the word, inspire everybody, because it's just the way to go. As you were saying, no, education in the fifth industrial revolution, already the fifth industrial revolution, and there's so much to learn precisely from culture, from the indigenous peoples, no, of not just the Philippines, but also other parts of the world. So yeah, it's exciting. There's so much of
I'm also excited because
promise.
AIM was convinced that the art science movement is really something worth investing on and putting on energy, because the AIM gets a lot of bright students who are capable of making change with all the knowledge in innovation and business entrepreneurship and even big data. I
Yeah.
think the art science movement can change the course of innovation in the country. We have 6 more minutes, but maybe we can ask final message from Jacob.
I was just going to say, I think, what about, having some kind of immersion trip to a community or to a place?
Oh,
I always think like these personal experiences are some of the more profound sort of, profound experiences for people that really change how they think about things. At least it was for me, and from a lot of people that I talked to. So having these sort of personal, on the ground experiences with interactions and kind of having that physical part, right? I think that's a way to really engage
Jacob
in.
can make me feel sorry about myself, because you know what, I when you say immersion, I would only think about Intramuros and SM. I just feel there's every time you talk about the beauty, I there's this, oops, my heart is aching. I'm
I mean,
already in my 50s. I'm missing a lot.
and photographs are great, but there's something about actually being there, and you get the smells and the sounds, and you get the whole experience, right? And so I don't think photos will ever be able to really capture the essence of everything. It can't. So having these personal experiences I still think, are the best way to teach and to educate. Um, so again, that's in line sort of with the indigenous ways of education as well. It's about experiences. It's about learning with a hands-on approach. So all of these things are they're happening in ways, but we can do more.
Dr. Corinne, you should have the last
Yeah,
word.
ako talaga. So
Yes.
I'm inviting the two of you to my class, Jacob and Custer and April, and perhaps even Dr. Chris Fonterola, who I think is following us here. You guys are called Renaissance men. How's that? Huh? So I'm going to invite you to that because I think that is what's going to happen in the coming years. No, yes, there's the artificial intelligence, but at the end of the day, there is also what you call natural intelligence, right? Renaissance men, I include myself, no? As yeah, like are really at the forefront of innovation. No? So thank you so much, everyone, for being with us for an entire year. Maraming salamat po. And yeah, Custer,
Yes,
thank you,
nice
Jacob,
chatting.
for being with us. Huh?
Thank you,
Thank you for
Jacob.
having me. I really appreciate it.
And thank you, Dr. Corinne, for making a change in the field of art science and popularizing it and mainstreaming it. So thank you all. At nais natin pasalamatan si Nelson Lubang, ating mahal na mahal na station manager ng Radyo Agila, Kuya Eric, Dexter Mahilum, ang ating mga co-hosts sa Pinoy Scientist, Dr. J.D. Agapito and Dr. Guido David. So sa ngalan po ng bumubuo ng Pinoy Scientist, ako si Dr. Custer.
Merry Christmas, everyone. This is Dr. Corinne.
At makita-kita ulit tayo sa susunod na linggo dito po sa programa na kung saan ang siyensya ay buhay. And next year, we might not be having the Art Science Radio, but we'll be continuing our advocacy for art science, innovation, and empathy. That's very important. So maraming salamat po sa inyong lahat.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Jacob. Thank you, Custer.
Thank you.
Merry Christmas. Happy New Year.
Merry Christmas.
Bye.